What looked like a day that would see Arvind Kejriwal, the beleaguered Chief Minister of Delhi, walking out of jail has turned into a setback for him. Mr. Kejriwal will stay in custody for now. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo Story. While a trial court accused the Enforcement Directorate of acting with bias against Arvind Kejriwal and went so far as to argue that the Enforcement Directorate had failed to establish any direct evidence against Arvind Kejriwal. On an appeal from the Enforcement Directorate, the Delhi High Court has halted the decision just moments ago to grant Mr. Kejriwal bail. While a detailed order from the Delhi High Court will only be available after the next 2 or 3 days, the Enforcement Directorate argued before the court that the decision of the judge, Justice Nyay Bindu, to grant Arvind Kejriwal bail was perverse. The ASG, while arguing before the Delhi High Court, said that the judge had not bothered to read through the documents that had been placed before the judge by the ED, saying that the judge had claimed that the documentation was too bulky. Countering the arguments made by the ED, Team Kejriwal's legal team, led by Abhishek Singhvi, who's also a Congress leader, said that the ED was behaving like Alice in Wonderland. Either way, if Arvind Kejriwal was meant to walk out today, that is not going to happen. The case also raises interesting questions about what instructions the Enforcement Directorate might or might not be under from the Modi government 3.0. Many are asking why the ED was in such a hurry to stop Arvind Kejriwal coming out on bail. To discuss the law and the politics both, let's introduce our panel on the program today. Ujjwal, Deepak, spokesperson and leader of the BJP, is with us. Welcome to the program. Sanjay, Hegde, senior advocate, is with us. Welcome. Akshay Marathe of the Aam Aadmi Party is with us. Welcome. Percival, Billimoria, senior advocate, is with us. Welcome to the program. And Arati, Jerath, senior journalist, is with us as well. Welcome, Arati, as ever. Let me start with you, Akshay. How disappointed are you? This was supposed to be a day when Mr. Kejriwal was coming out. The Aam Aadmi Party was quoting from the trial court's order, which accused the ED of bias. The ED has called that perverse. The Delhi High Court appears to have prima facie, at least prima facie till we have a more detailed order, agreed. There is no bail for Arvind Kejriwal. Your responses as an AAP leader this evening.
Let me admit that we were taken by surprise when the trial court order came in yesterday saying that regular bail is being granted to Arvind Kejriwal. Because as we have seen in the past several years, getting bail under the PMLA Section 45 has become almost impossible, just in the way that the judiciary has been interpreting that section. And for the benefit of your viewers, let me just explain why Section 45 bail is so critical and so difficult to get. There is a twin condition where the judge has to be prima facie satisfied that no offense has been committed by the accused, and it is not likely that an offense will be committed in the future after bail has been granted. It is as good as pronouncing somebody innocent without a trial, because unfortunately trial has not even come to, there's no sign that a trial is going to happen anytime soon. So in the absence of a trial, this bail hearing has become turned into a mini trial of its own. And when a trial court pronounces somebody almost not guilty at the stage of giving regular bail, it is obviously a huge boost to the Aam Aadmi Party. And this, until the trial court order is set aside by a superior court, as it stands today, Mr. Arvind Kejriwal should be a free man. Of course, there are a few more days to go before the High Court can pronounce its own verdict on this matter and you decide whether or not Arvind Kejriwal ji will.
Are you disappointed at the moment?
Like I said, Barkha, because it came as a surprise, there was not enough time to go from the joyousness of expecting Mr. Kejriwal back to being disappointed. So, and several setbacks in the legal system have come our way in the past. It's nothing new. We expect that the High Court will take a reasoned view, and the lawyers on this panel will be much more suited to explain why there are absolutely no grounds on which the High Court can stay the order unless there is some kind of patent illegality in the reasoning of the trial court's order, which is if you read through the order, let me quickly point out why I think it is a completely unreasonable on the ED's part to actually even go to the High Court, because all that the trial court has said is that there is no evidence of a money trail, which is the most fundamental thing that the
Mhm.
ED has to prove when it comes to money laundering cases. So if there is no money trail, there is no link that they have been able to show to Arvind Kejriwal, and these are not mere facts that I am stating. This has been, reasoned through by the honorable judge of the
Okay.
lower court.
Let me before we get into the law, get a political response from Ujjwal ji of the BJP. Why was the ED in such a hurry? Let's hypothesize for a moment that Arvind Kejriwal had walked out on bail. ED had all the time in the world to make an appeal, send him back if they wanted. He's not a flight risk. I'm sure you would agree with at least that. He's a chief minister of Delhi, right? Even if the Enforcement Directorate opposes the bail to Mr. Kejriwal, doesn't agree with Nyay Bindu, the trial court judge's decision, what was the tearing hurry? भी किसी तरह इनको रोकिए निकलने से.
But first of all, why is he still the chief minister? I mean, Lalu Prasad Yadav also resigned when he was convicted or when he was put into jail. Recently, Hemant Soren also resigned, right? An Adivasi chief minister from Jharkhand. But a literate IT graduate, Arvind Kejriwal, does not resign, right? So for us, Mr. Arvind Kejriwal is like that boy. I'm recalled of the old childhood days when the boy, somebody used to own the bat and ball, and he would just not get out. Even if it's run out, even if stumped, he would always make a hue and cry that I own the bat and ball and I cannot get out. That's it. He would not even listen to the umpire. And all the other guys had to listen to him just because he owned the ball and bat. So why still he is the chief minister? Look at the hypocrisy. I think Mr. Arvind Kejriwal is the biggest hypocrite India has ever seen. He cried against Parivar. Now the Bhabiji is running the party, right? Don't they have other leaders in the party? A Swati Maliwal being beaten inside the chief minister's house. A chief secretary beaten inside the chief minister's house. So, I mean, this is a drama. This is a political drama we all are watching. And who's Arvind Kejriwal to question the ED that why they in hurry? Haven't we seen the likes of court granting bail in midnight from their homes? So ED is doing their job, and Arvind Kejriwal has no morality to ask. He has to first resign. So who is responsible for Delhi? Who is being governed by Delhi right now? And what is his blame? Currently, the Aam Aadmi Party is doing a protest against the Aam Aadmi Party government at Delhi for not providing water to Aam Aadmi, which was promised by the Aam Aadmi Party then. So what is this blame game? Whatever happens, if you recall a statement by Arvind Kejriwal then, during when he was protesting against the then incumbent government, he said Delhi has all the capabilities to produce water. You can still have the clip. You can just search on the YouTube and get that clip. So what is this hypocrisy, Barkha? What is this going on?
Okay. Both the politicians have spoken, and Akshay, I know you're going to want to respond, but can we just get the legal perspectives in, and then we can come back to the politics? Otherwise, this will go on. Do you have one sentence to say, Akshay? Just one sentence before I come to
No,
Arati and the lawyers.
I'm only amused that the BJP spokesperson has not even once repeated the ED's allegation that there was a bribe exchanged in this case, because all this while that's all that they were saying on every single debate. But today, when the case has fallen flat, even the BJP spokesperson has not dared to attempt to malign Arvind Kejriwal like they used to. I'm glad.
Okay. We'll come back to Ujjwal. We'll come back to you, Ujjwal. Percival Billimoria. Here's the point: we don't actually know the mind of the Delhi High Court. We'll have to wait for the detailed order, but we do know that there is an effective stay. There is an effective stay because the judge is the court has said that we will release our more detailed order, let's say by Tuesday. Until then, Kejriwal stays in jail. The ED argued that the judge's trial court's decision to give bail was perverse. Do you agree with that position?
So, look, there have been very interesting arguments both ways. And I think, the final word on this issue is not yet. I think this matter will probably go right up to the Supreme Court. Because, it's something like, the plot thickens, or, if you read P.G. Woodhouse, there are wheels within wheels. We also have to be a little mindful of the fact that, the matter is still sub judice. So any counsel commenting on shows like this have to be a little careful about what they say. Now, what we do know is, yes, the learned vacation judge at Rouse Avenue said that the evidence and the records that have been produced by both sides is too voluminous. It also said that the court also said that, look, a lot of this is irrelevant. And then there are certain conclusions that are there in the bail order, which are probably, in my view, not warranted. So to that extent, see, when you apply against a bail order, what are you saying? Your cancellation of bail is a very narrow window. Cancellation of bail is only when liberty has been misused. This is not a situation where it is cancellation of bail. It is a situation where the bail order itself is either perverse or not warranted. Now, see, we heard a couple of submissions already. So, for example, the money trail. Now, the order itself records the fact that out of the alleged 100 crore, the ED has already traced 40 crore, but it says that the other 60 crore is yet to be traced, and then the ED has not said how much time they need to trace it. Now, the point is that in the case of Mr. Sisodia, it was well accepted before the Supreme Court that, look, by the first week of July, the next charge sheet will be filed. So we are not very far off from that milestone. So I don't really know why there was this tearing hurry to grant a bail at this particular stage.
But the question can also be asked, why the tearing hurry to oppose it?
Well, because in the view of the ED, the order is perverse. And there have been very detailed arguments that have been made to support that. My own view, if you ask me, is that, well, a judge that says in the order that, look, I'm not going to look at the material on record at this stage, because one of the key aspects of bail under PMLA is that there should be a prima facie decision as to whether the person is guilty or not guilty, because Section 19 and 45 does have that dynamic. 19 is all about the arresting officer having grounds to believe that the accused is guilty. 45, the bar is in fact lower. So, I mean, to that extent, I don't really agree with the general proposition that is being bandied about, that it's very difficult to get bail. The bar in 45 is lower. See, what comes first? First is the arrest. In arrest, based on material on record, what we call as relied upon documents, the arresting officer has to show that there are grounds to believe that he is guilty. And then the bar that you have to satisfy in 45 is only that reasonable grounds to believe that he is not guilty. So, the challenge in a bail is vis-a-vis Section 19 grounds of arrest. Now, the problem is that various high courts in the country were adopting different practices. Many were not giving the grounds of arrest. Some were giving, but very short, concise grounds. Some were saying verbally. Generally, the stand of the ED is that the remand application itself is the grounds of arrest. But then that's not correct. But the jurisprudence on this issue is now well settled. The Supreme Court has said grounds of arrest must be provided.
So let me bring in Sanjay Hegde at this point. In fact, Abhishek Singhvi, the lawyer for Kejriwal, argued again and again in court that what they were challenging was the legality of the arrest itself. That is one of the points that he made repeatedly. The other thing that the ED kept quoting in the court today was that the judge has not bothered to read the documentation, the trial court judge, because the trial court judge has said that it is too voluminous, it is too bulky, right? What do you make of what the High Court has done today in direct? We don't know if in direct contrast to the trial court, because we have to wait for the judgment. But what do you make of this sort of effective stay or interim stay, if it can be called that? Sanjay Hegde.
You must remember that the arguments went on till about 4:30 today. It's a Friday. If a judge has to deliver judgment, he still needs his staff, the stenographer and everything. So therefore, the judge has basically said that, look, I've reserved my judgment. Let me think over it and deliver it. And for the next 2 days, this bail order should not be given effect to. I don't read anything much more than that, as whether this is an indication of the judge's mind that we are staying the arrest and all that, because the judge in the vacation bench is only deciding a should this appeal be entertained? Yes, we'll have to issue notice. What is to happen in the meanwhile? And that is why, given the logistics part of it, it is said that okay, we'll stay it for 2 or 3 days. So that is, if the order is ready on Monday, on Monday it will be, or on Tuesday. And if the order is not favorable to Mr. Kejriwal, I fully expect that the matter will go to the Supreme Court. However, there is one thing that troubles me. This is not the only arrest that has been, the bail order that has been stayed by a superior court. The Supreme Court did it recently in 2 other cases, both in J.N. Sai Baba as well as Gautam Navalaka. You see, we were brought up to believe that courts err on the side of liberty of the citizen. However, sometimes courts are more executive minded than the executive itself. There will, as a lot of people have been saying, if a man is released, if a release order was processed today and the man came out, 3 days later, 4 days later, you decided that there was an arguable case on the ED's side and that this bail may have been wrongly granted, then you want to stay there, do it later. But why stand in the way of people's freedom, even for a minute? Normally, in many countries abroad, the prosecution just gets one bite of the cherry. If there is an acquittal, for instance, prosecutions can't appeal. Most of the law is citizen-centric. However, we tend to pay lip service to the citizens' rights, and we look more towards the unfortunate prosecution led by the top legal officers of the country who say that they have not been heard. I read the order, and there are at least about 20 paragraphs detailing all the arguments made by the ASG. So I would really like some appellate court to ask the ASG concerned, these are the arguments. Now, in addition to this, what
Yeah.
that you wanted to say?
But you've made an important point about the role of a higher court and how high courts, this is not the first time that the high courts have not shown an intuition to lean towards liberty. Before I come to Arati and we go back to the politics, Percival, Billimoria, what do you say about that? Bail is meant to be the norm, not the exception, as a principle. The Chief Justice talks a lot about it. There are, guidelines that courts are supposed to follow. Yet you believe that the trial court... Sorry, Sanjay, are you trying to say something while I complete?
Yes, sir, because you mentioned the Chief Justice.
Yes.
And the trial judge, Justice Bindu, has quoted the Chief Justice's speech and said that the Chief Justice has told us, let us be more open about bail.
That's right. That's why I brought up Justice Chandrachud's comments, because the trial court judge, as Sanjay pointed out, did quote Justice Chandrachud. Why then do you believe that this is something that was done in too much of a rush by the trial court? Percival?
No, I'm not saying, can you hear me? I'm not saying that it was done in a rush. The point is, I think in any judicial proceeding, in any judicial order, both sides have to be heard. And I think when I went through the submissions made, the learned ASG pointed out, in fact, a report published in the Bar and Bench, where, he was told to hurry up because she wants to give the decision. So I think in a way he was justified in making that submission. Now, the point is that there is so let me be very clear that I agree with Mr. Hegde. Bail is always a right and jail is the exception, and that principle applies also to ED. Let me be very clear about that. There's no getting away from it. But there are 2-3 very important and interesting aspects here. One is this is an order where, despite not considering some of the submissions made, there is a finding. So yes, there are paragraphs, more than 20, which reproduce both sides of the argument. But in the findings, I think that is a little problematic, and that is what was alluded to in the submissions. Secondly, there's a very interesting issue here, which is a legal issue, because see, the Delhi High Court, in a challenge to the legality of the arrest, had made certain observations. Now, it was submitted by the learned ASG that those observations have not been stayed by the Supreme Court. Now, Dr. Singhvi argued that, look, in any event, those observations were in a separate proceeding. This is a bail proceeding. Right. And of course, the Supreme Court also gave liberty that you can now apply for bail. So this is a very interesting legal argument, and which is, I'm saying that I'm really waiting for the outcome of this one. And I think, it's a case of wheels within wheels. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when you talk about stay, one of the main grounds for not giving bail is, the question really before the court is the person concerned in an influential position to be able to influence the outcome of the investigation or to influence the witnesses?
Yes.
He's not a flight risk. Nobody denies that. Right. So, to that extent, what Mr. Hegde said, what was the harm if, he would have been released for 3-4 days? But then by that time, the damage could have been done.
Okay, so this is interesting that you say it's not a flight risk, but he occupies a position of influence. Let me just bring in Arati. She's been waiting very patiently. Arati, there's an up and down, and it's also impacting the political fortunes of the Aam Aadmi Party, because the sympathy vote that many thought might have been manifested in the results did not happen in either Delhi or Punjab. And the longer Mr. Kejriwal stays in, the weaker now it is for his party, because it's not translating, at least to the eye, into this upsurge of popular support on the streets. What do you make of what's happening?
Barkha, you're absolutely right. Look, I don't know the legalities. All that will have to be proved in court, whether he actually took the money and used it in Goa and Punjab or not. All that's a matter of, for the courts to decide. But the fact is that by arresting Arvind Kejriwal, when the election process began, the BJP, or by getting him arrested by the ED, the BJP virtually killed the Aam Aadmi Party Congress campaign in Delhi. I know so many people who went to the booth to vote either for the Aam Aadmi Party or for the Congress and found that one symbol was missing. They had no idea that there was a coalition between the two parties and that they were fighting this election together. The Aam Aadmi Party lost its leader. The Congress has virtually not much of a leadership in Delhi. So it was really on Arvind Kejriwal's shoulders to make that alliance work. And if not win all 7 seats, maybe that was a very, ambitious thing. But certainly to, make a dent into maybe 1 or 2 seats in Delhi. And they probably could have done it had the campaign got off the ground.
But they would argue, but they would argue that Kejriwal did come out for the campaign. A, B,
But
how is it? I'm just asking the question.
He came out at the very end, just 1 week before voting. And in that 1 week, he had to divide himself between Haryana, Delhi, and Punjab. I mean, come on, it's not possible. You need work on the ground. You need to get your workers aligned. You need to get the message out to people that there is an alliance. If you're supporting Aam Aadmi Party in this constituency where there's a Congress candidate, go and press the hand button, the haath ka symbol. That message was not out. But, judging from what the BJP spokesperson is saying here, I mean, as I said, it's for the courts to decide how guilty Arvind Kejriwal is in terms of actually making money, taking a bribe, and so on. But judging from what the BJP spokesperson has said on your show, the main thing seems to be to get Arvind Kejriwal out, to get him out of office. He's talking about, he's like a cricketer who gets run out but refuses to leave the cricket ground despite being declared run out by the, umpire. So, the idea seems to be to just get this guy out. Barkha, there are important state assembly elections coming up in the next few months. Maharashtra, the BJP is on a weak wicket. Haryana, the BJP is on a weak wicket. Jharkhand, it's all up in the air. The BJP lost all the 5 tribal seats in Jharkhand. And immediately after that will come the Delhi elections. The BJP has not been able to make any space for itself in Delhi over the last 10 years. You know, I mean, clearly this is something that rankles with the BJP. And Aam Aadmi Party is the thing that is standing in their way. Aam Aadmi Party is that's standing in their way. So, and the best way to destroy the Aam Aadmi Party is to knock Arvind Kejriwal out. The party will just collapse after that. Because there is no, you know, like all one-man-centric parties, there is no second line of leadership, no organization, nothing. Everything depends on the charisma of this one man. So, you know, I mean, I think that this is the BJP has major political challenges on its hands. And after having underperformed in the Lok Sabha elections, obviously, you know, continuous losses in assembly elections will only weaken this government, weaken the BJP's position within the coalition, and definitely weaken its ability to push its agenda. So, you know, I think, it's
So you're saying
really a political game.
You're saying this is personal for the BJP?
Very personal. And you can see from the way the BJP spokesperson was talking, we want Arvind Kejriwal out. You know, he didn't talk about the bribes or the corruption. He just said, get him out. You know, he's been run out, now get him out.
Let's take it back briefly to the 2 politicians. Akshay, you were wanting to come in. And I think the legal point made by Percival Billimoria was 2 points. One, the reference by the trial judge to voluminous, bulky documents. So gave the law officer the opportunity to argue that you haven't read our evidence. You're not bothering to read everything. And 2, of course, he's not a flight risk, but he's a person of influence. Do respond.
But 2 quick points, and then I want to make a larger point as well. Number 1,
sure.
If he was in a position to influence anything, this investigation began in 2022. And he was arrested on the eve of the election more than 1.5 years after the said investigation had begun already. So if he had to influence anything, he had ample time to have influence in the past. On the contrary, Barkha, what the trial court also has observed is that it is the Enforcement Directorate which is influencing witnesses. They have very clearly said that the ED is artistically producing evidence that is in favor of the Enforcement Directorate and artistically hiding evidence that goes to show that Mr. Kejriwal has not committed any crimes. And that it makes that observation based on 2 specific cases of 2 witnesses, Magunta Srinivas Reddy and Sharat Chandra Reddy, both of whom gave 9 statements saying that they have no connection to Mr. Kejriwal. And then once they turned approvers, they suddenly changed their tunes. So it is in fact the Enforcement Directorate that is mala fide acting in this case to influence the witnesses. Now coming to the second point of what was Mr. Billimoria's second legal.
That the judge didn't read all the documents.
The judge didn't. Now that is one of the most bizarre things that I've heard, because if you look at what is happening right now, the trial has not begun. Why should a judge have to go through the thousands and thousands of pages of charge sheet that the investigating authority presents to it in a bail hearing? Are you saying that the trial should be done away with? Let's now reduce the bail into the trial and turn every single case into a mini trial at the stage of bail. If that was the case, then that is a great idea for all investigating authorities. Present thousands and thousands of pages to deny bail to everybody who comes in front of the lower court. So that is, I think that is one of the most bizarre arguments I've heard today. And final, let me make a larger point. The election verdict of June 4th was a message to the Bharatiya Janata Party to stop this gundagardi. They have been doing this for the last 10 years, going after opponents, going after anybody who dissents. Now, let me tell you something, Barkha. When Aam Aadmi Party ventured into Gujarat just 2 years ago, our leader Satyendra Jain was arrested. We were told very clearly through various sources, if you step beyond your, Delhi, Punjab territory, we will go after you and we will finish you. That was the messaging that Arvind Kejriwal got. And he, went against the Bharatiya Janata Party at that stage. And today he is facing the consequences of that. He's a man who's not scared of the BJP, and that is what the BJP doesn't know what to do with. Because if he was scared of them, they could have easily manipulated him into joining their NDA alliance like they have done with all their other alliances.
Okay, so that's a strong statement. It's a message to the BJP's Gunda Gardi. That's your phrase. Before I come to Ujjwal, Deepak, Percival, Billimoria, to the point that why does honor for a bail hearing? Should the trial judge go through all of these thousands of pages? That's one important question. And the other important question is the delay in actually moving. As Akshay Marathe said, I mean, this has been going on since 2022. If he had to, he being Kejriwal, if he had to influence witnesses, it could have happened all of this while.
Correct. So the second point that he's making is a good point, but it is for the court to decide. See, the court has to decide what has it to say. I mean, if I do release this person now, is he in a position to influence the witnesses? On the one hand, it was argued that he's got a clean record and there is no requirement or need for him to do this because he is innocent. On the other hand, it was argued that he is in a position of power because being a chief minister is a very powerful position. Please don't forget that, right? So I'm not suggesting at all as to whether the decision one way or the other is correct. All I'm saying is that this issue is for the court to decide, and the court on this point has not decided. See, again, coming to the first point that was made by the AAP spokesperson, the issue really is that when you have thousands of documents, there are verbal arguments made, right? Now, one of the things that struck me, we keep saying something about, we've had this debate ad nauseum about how witnesses can be artfully doctored, right? Now, one of the arguments that was mentioned in the order is that the witness statements themselves are contradictory, right? I've often said that, look, ultimately they'll have to stand a test in trial. They'll be subject to cross-examination. So then let that happen, right? Right now, we are not in a position to conclude either way whether he is guilty or not guilty. All we need is a prima facie. It is a prima facie on the face of the record. Now, when you look at the record and when you look at on the face of the record, there were certain WhatsApp statements that were attached. Now, we don't know. Nobody on the show knows what these WhatsApp records that were produced to corroborate this evidence were. Right? But surely that could have been considered.
Yeah, but the question is, does that have to be considered at the trial stage, at the bail stage, or when the case is actually being tried? This is a bail hearing. This is not a hearing on the guilt or innocence of Mr. Arvind Kejriwal. That's right. The two things are different.
Correct, but the jurisprudence is that a prima facie view on guilty or not guilty has to be shown.
Okay.
That's all we can argue.
Okay. Actually, I know you want to come in, but very quickly, Ujjwal and then Sanjay. Ujjwal, to Arati's point that all you want to do is to get Arvind Kejriwal out of the way, get him to leave the stumps, get a weaker player at the wicket, to use your cricket metaphor. What do you say to that?
Barkha, this is getting funny, and I'll tell you what. Anna Hazare's prodigy, Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, he used to be the most moral person in India, right? A person full of integrity, सबसे ईमानदार आदमी, सबसे मेरे अलावा तो कोई और ईमानदार है ही नहीं, सब चोर हैं, right? शरद पवार इस चोर, कांग्रेस इस चोर, परिवारवाद की बातें करते थे अरविंद केजरीवाल जी. Where is all that gone? On moral grounds, he needed to resign the day he was arrested, right? B, to answer Arati's questions, BJP didn't get him arrested, ED arrested him. And contrary, and I'll tell you fun fact here. And just to corroborate on what the AAP spokesperson said here, he was arrested one and a half years later on the eve of the election date. Now I'll tell you as a normal BJP karyakarta, common BJP karyakarta. You know what did I think? This is a foolish thing to happen now. Leaders, when they get arrested, what do you generally see? They get sympathy. They get sympathy from their voters. Especially a leader like Arvind Kejriwal, who has got the majority like never before in Delhi, and not once, twice, it was thrice, right? We as BJP karyakartas were afraid that this is a wrong move, and he'll get sympathy. Look at Amritpal Singh. He won the election sitting right in the jail of Assam, right? Look at Mr. Bain Singh's son. Or look at Lalu Prasad Yadav and all other leaders. Unfortunately for Aam Aadmi Party and fortunately for the BJP, nobody came on the streets. He didn't get any sympathy. And look
I
what's
think
happened to him.
I think those are
Gone to the gutter, believe me. He used to
okay.
talk about Parivarvad and Bhabhi ji is running the party. This is
Okay.
an irony. This is an
Okay,
irony.
I put the point about Sunita Kejriwal to Akshay Marathe, but Arati before Sanjay, just to reverse the order, because I think that's a fair set of questions. That as an Anna Hazare protege, you called everybody else corrupt. At that time, if a politician had run a government from jail, you would have said it's amoral. And three, that they worried that the timing was actually silly because it could turn into a political advantage. Those are three reasonable points. Do respond, Arati.
Absolutely. So, firstly, on the issue of morality, I mean, the BJP took on board Ajit Pawar, who is arguably one of the most corrupt politicians in Maharashtra, who is on record making one of the most horrible statements about what can I do if the dams have no water? Should I urinate in them? And the BJP took him on board as an ally and fought the elections with him. So please, let's not bring morality into this. I mean, I think everybody is about as immoral or amoral as the other. Number one. Number two, yes, certainly, Arvind Kejriwal did not get sympathy vote. But I did go around the city, and I think the same refrain I heard in 2014 and again in 2019, I heard it again in 2024. Upar Modi, Niche Kejriwal. I think that there is a lot of sympathy for Kejriwal, in terms of running the state. But this was a Lok Sabha election. And Delhi being the center, the seat of power, I mean, obviously, the BJP and Modi had a much bigger advantage because Kejriwal is at the end of the day, the chief minister of half a state and he rules one other small state up in the north. That's all. He doesn't have any more, he doesn't have a bigger political platform. So I would say that I think the real test comes next year in February when the state assembly elections are held. And for the BJP, Delhi has been their girl. The BJP, Jan Sangh was born in Delhi, Barkha, and the BJP has, in the earlier days when it was Jan Sangh, has always been very strong. But for the last 15 and 10, 25 years, this place has gone out of their hands. First, you had Sheila Dikshit of the Congress running Delhi for 3 terms, and then Arvind Kejriwal for 2 terms. Where is the BJP? It now can't even, it can barely win, the seats in 2 digits. So I think it rankles a lot because the BJP, this used to be, this is their birthplace. And, where their main leaders have lived and, done their politics and everything. So it really rankles that they cannot recapture Delhi. So the test for Arvind Kejriwal was not the Lok Sabha election. The real test is going to come next year in February when the state assembly elections are held. And I think that's when you see the sympathy kicking in.
Okay, Sanjay Hegde, let's return to the law. This is not the actual trial, it's a bail hearing. But what are you, I mean, we can't anticipate what the judges might do, but what's the legal principle at stake according to you?
The legal principle still remains the same. Under 45, if you can't grant bail except on a prima facie satisfaction, is the prima facie satisfaction which has been expressed by the trial court enough, or was the trial court order perverse? I think that if the Delhi High Court were to interfere and stay the bail, the matter will land in the Supreme Court before the vacation bench this week itself, the next week itself. And in any event, the Supreme Court is already seized of the earlier matter about the legality of the arrest. The point, however, is that the Enforcement Directorate has for far too long enjoyed the ability to put people in jail and say, oh no, Mr. Court, you can't give him bail. This cannot go on indefinitely. And the more a law is abused, the more that questions that will be raised. And I do think that those who appear on the prosecution side have a duty to be fair. The deadliest prosecutors are those who are fair. Here, it almost seems like a vendetta, which is being you file an appeal without even a copy of the order. Immediately thereafter, there is an interim stay. I don't think at the end of the day, unfairness will get you very far in the courts or in life itself.
And to the criticisms of the trial court judge, you would say what to her, referencing the bulkiness of the documentation?
Okay,
Yeah.
This reminded me of what Justice Sri Krishna once told a lawyer who was over arguing, who went on arguing, and he said, "I have not been hurt." This one, Mr. So and so, have you read the Village Schoolmaster? That gentleman would not know what the Village Schoolmaster was. He said, "Please go read the Village Schoolmaster." It was in the early days before everybody had a smartphone. But I happened to have a BlackBerry and I Googled. And there was that immortal sentence. In arguing too, they all acknowledged his skill. For even though vanquished, he could argue still. The trial court was telling the ASG, look, I've heard you. This is a bail. I've heard enough. I am making up my mind. I'm giving you what is a reasonable amount of time. My staff keeps getting held back. Please, any good lawyer can conclude the case. So now no lawyer, no matter whom he appears for, has a judge's attention indefinitely. From what I see of the reporting and all that, I do think that there was a case of over arguing and trying to overawe somebody who was a 30-year-old woman who is a judge and who has a mind of her own. I'm very happy that the younger crop in the judiciary is now coming up, standing up for citizens' rights. And in fact, there was during the CA-NRC, when the Supreme Court did not grant any relief, it was a trial court judge who did grant relief. Very often, if the roots are strong, then the fruits and branches will take care of themselves. I'm very happy that the younger judiciary has come of age.
Let me get Percival Billimoria. One of the comments that came from an opposition politician, Mahua Moitra, on social media after the trial court's verdict was the judiciary is back. There has been this suggestion that the judiciary, with a very, very powerful government, is not able to be independent in the same way. I cast no aspersions on any individual judges, I should clarify, but this debate is ongoing. That a judiciary can only be as independent as the political space allows it to be. That is the way it's structurally set up. On points of liberty, Sanjay Hegde says the younger judges are showing a kind of spine that the high courts have not shown. There have been other cases also where the high courts have not gone with jail being the exception principle. What do you say?
I disagree completely because, look, there are several situations where, and I just gave one example on the show about the grounds of arrest, where the courts have laid down the jurisprudence. No doubt that jurisprudence should have been laid down a little earlier, but it also depends on the lawyers. Are they pushing that? Are they saying that, look, I have not been given the grounds of arrest, which you are obliged to do under law? And if you do that, the courts will give you that relief. And it took a long time for the courts to come around to that situation, which is a pity. But the fault also lies with the lawyers, not just with the bench. So I disagree completely. There have been many situations where the statute has been read down by the courts. So I don't think it has anything to do with the younger generation or anything. I think, look, there are two very clear, indelible principles. One is, yes, bail is a right, jail the exception, right? And as far as I'm concerned, and even the courts are concerned, that applies also to PMLA. The other principle is everybody is equal in the eyes of law. So when you come to a chief minister, right? See, today, do the people on the show, are they in a position to tell us that, in your view, if you were deciding prima facie guilty or not guilty, what would you say? I'm not. I'm not saying he's guilty, but at the same time, I'm saying it is too early to say whether he is guilty or not because the trial is still pending. Right? But at the stage of bail, when you have WhatsApp messages and it is argued before you that, look, the role of this individual is adequately borne out by these WhatsApp messages. You don't have to look at the thousands of pages, but at least read those and then form your own opinion.
Okay.
That's really the only thing that's mandated by law. That is something
Do
that you
you
should.
do you believe Mr. Kejriwal should get bail? I'm not talking about what's happened in court. Do you believe, as a principle, Mr. Kejriwal should get bail while the case is being tried on these WhatsApp messages and so on and other things?
He should, if I am in a position to decide today as to whether he is capable of influencing the witnesses. Because, see, his own finance minister, the Supreme Court was told that, look, in the first week of July, the final charge sheet will be out. And the Supreme Court said, okay, then he will not get bail till then. So why what? There is a principle of, also there's another issue. One more thing that was argued is, there is collective responsibility. There is a vicarious liability at the very least, right? So as the chief minister, can you stand up and say, I knew nothing about it, whatever happened, please ask my minister? You can't do that. Right? It is contrary to Article 75.
Right. I think that's a very important point that I want to take. We'll start coming to you only, Akshay. That's an important point. The point is that Mr. Kejriwal's colleague, Manish Sisodia, has been in jail much longer than Arvind Kejriwal, right? If there are others, Vijay Nyay and so on, if there is a collective responsibility, if this happened on Kejriwal's watch, can he disassociate himself from it? Because nobody's really talking about Manish Sisodia anymore. For example, if Mr. Kejriwal is innocent, do we say Manish Sisodia is innocent? If Mr. Manish Sisodia is prima facie guilty, do we say the same for Arvind Kejriwal? How do you respond?
Barkha, I think let me make a larger point about the judiciary in this context. You see, in my opinion, we are in the midst of a major judicial crisis in our country. We have several political prisoners who are languishing in jail for years on end without any respite, despite the Supreme Court's Chief Justice saying repeatedly that bail should be given as a matter of right. And so it is not just about Aam Aadmi Party. Aam Aadmi Party is a small baby. It's a 10-year-old party, of which 4 leaders have been in jail now for several years. Sanjay Singh, Manish Sisodia, Arvind Kejriwal, Satyendra Jain, Vijay Nyay. There's a long list of people who have been languishing in jail. So there is a clear attempt to strangulate the party at a time when it is actually looking very dangerous to the political establishment of the country. So it is unfortunate for our democracy that the richness of our democracy is being played with by the weakening of our judicial institutions, which actually should have stopped this from happening. But be that as it may, to answer your specific question about Manish Sisodia, at the time when the Supreme Court had said that bail cannot be granted, the Supreme Court did not say that Mr. Sisodia is guilty. All they said is that the ED was insisting that the trial is about to be concluded. So that's why we should not make a decision on bail right now. And so on the basis of that order, it cannot be said that Mr. Sisodia was denied bail on the grounds of Section 45. In fact, the Supreme Court said that we want the ED to conclude the trial fast so that this man can be let out if he's innocent. And keeping an innocent man in jail for years on end is, I think, a crime that the BJP will have to pay for eventually. As they say, समय का चक्र बड़ा बलवान होता है. बीजेपी के पास भी आएंगे ये दिन जो आज वो बाकी ऑपोजिशन को दिखा रहे हैं. They should be careful.
Ujjwal, do you want to respond to that? You should be careful. What goes around, comes around. The AAP has experienced that, by the way, with the Anna Hazare movement, which you pointed out. The same applies to you. There are already people in the Sangh Parivar. Ratan Sharda wrote in the organizer कि BJP ने क्यों alliance की अजीत पवार के साथ. It went against us, right? So what goes around does come around. Nothing is constant in politics except that. Do respond to that.
Barkha, I have a message for Aam Aadmi Party. आदमी को चाहिए कि वक्त से डर कर रहे, आदमी को चाहिए कि वक्त से डर कर रहे, कौन जाने किस घड़ी वक्त का बदले मिजाज. ओके, ये वक्त फिल्म का
ये आपके लिए भी उतना ही वैलिड है जितना उनके लिए, बाय द वे. हाँ,
Let me finish, Barkha. So, Arvind Kejriwal calling everybody chore is himself in jail. Now, this debate is not about the morality of Bhajpa. This debate is all about Arvind Kejriwal's arrest and him getting bail, right? So, I'm talking about him. That he used to be the most moral person in India, according to him, right? अच्छा, मनीष सिसोदिया जी से इस्तीफा क्यों लिया जब वो खुद इस्तीफा नहीं दे सकते थे तो? Now, is that moral? Is that ethical? Is that integrity? अन्ना हजारे जी के शिष्य हैं अरविंद केजरीवाल जी, the protege of अन्ना हजारे. Think what that guy would be, feeling today, sitting in his village. आप ये सोचिए थोड़ा सा. तो ये जो है ना वक्त आम आदमी पार्टी पे एप्लीकेबल होता है, तो ये बोलते हैं सब चोर हैं, शीला दीक्षित चोर हैं, सब चोर हैं.
वो आपकी बात सही है, पर वो आप पे भी एप्लीकेबल है कि कल को किसी और की सरकार हो और आप ऑपोजिशन में हो और ईडी इतनी ही वेपनाइज रहे तो वो आपके नेताओं पर भी इस तरह से एक्ट कर सकती है, राइट?
लेट टाइम डिसाइड दैट. लेट शरद पवार जी घड़ी डिसाइड दैट कि वो किसकी तरफ रहेंगे. बट एज ऑन डेट, हु इज द चोर, हु इज द कल्प्रिट?
Okay. Before Arati's last comment, Percival, you wanted to come in briefly. Percival Billimoria, can we unmute him, please? Yes.
So,
give me go ahead.
There's one very important aspect here. See, I am once again repeating, I don't think anybody is concluding and saying he's guilty. At the same time, you can't say he's not guilty, right? Yet we hear submission saying you are keeping an innocent man in jail. Even, the lady journalist said that, look, you are trying to get rid of a political opponent. Underlying presumption being that he's not guilty. I'm saying you are not in a position to come to that conclusion. Have you read the evidence? Have you read the documents? Have you read the WhatsApp messages? You are not. I haven't read them. You haven't read them. So you cannot conclude this. Now, in such a situation, when you claim political prosecution, there are only two things you are saying. One is either you are saying, oh, he's not guilty, which is, I think, a little cynical at this stage, or you are saying that it is every politician's birthright to be corrupt. He should still fight elections.
I'll let Arati speak for herself. But Sanjay, okay. Sanjay, you want to come in briefly and then I'll give Arati the closing word. Sanjay Hegde, yes.
Ended of Justice Katju, who when prosecutions would get unreasonable, would finally say, "Bacche ke jaan loge kya?" So it is ultimately that's what it is coming to. If you think that you can levy allegations, say I will prove it in a trial in God's good time, and there is some floating WhatsApp message in somebody else's phone saying that look, there is a currency note photograph, and I believe that though I can't physically say that this was the proceeds of crime, there was some money which was spent somewhere in Goa, somewhere in Gujarat, may have been. That is where the Alice in Wonderland quality of this entire case comes out. Where like the Red Queen, you can say off with her head, and so be it. So this is where ultimately this is not only Arvind Kejriwal, but it is the fairness of the system.
I think Percy wants to respond
by the courts, which is on trial.
Percival?
Look, I am only going by whatever I have read in the learned vacation judge's order. So when you come to, it was argued that, it is nonsensical to say that there is no money trail because it was sent out by Hawala. One of the arguments recorded in that order of the ED also says that the money trail as to how it went from each Hawala operator to the other is supported by WhatsApp messages. So I think it's really unfair on anyone to comment and say he's guilty or not guilty. I'm not saying he is guilty. At the same time, you cannot say he's not guilty. Let the trial court determine that. In the meantime, is he entitled to bail? Yes, but in accordance with the normal principles of bail. What are the normal principles of bail? Is he in a position to influence witnesses? Then he should not get bail. Now, this is the opinion of the judge. The judge has to apply his or her mind and come to this conclusion.
Okay, Sanjay, you also wanted to respond there because I have to go to Akshay and Arati and then close.
No,
Sanjay?
no. Say,
Yeah.
who are the witnesses? The witnesses are members of parliament who gave electoral bonds. Come on, this, at the end of the day, this drama has gone on far too long. It has to be shut down, bring back status quo ante, let the trial take place as expeditiously as the ED can
Okay.
do it. The ED is not a cure for electile dysfunction.
Okay, I'm glad our capacity to pun is still alive. Everybody has closing comments, so I'll give everybody 30 seconds to make their closing comments. Sanjay, you want to add a line? I'll start with you. You made your point. Okay, Ujjwal, go ahead.
Yeah, Barkha, I just wrote, that if AAP has access to the WhatsApp messages, they should disclose everything. The conversation with Swati Maliwal, how she was beaten, how Babiji is running the party, the Khalistan funding part, everything. To the most moral politician of India, the full of integrity, talking against Parivarwad, but handing over the party to Babiji. They should talk about everything.
Okay.
No blame, please.
Okay.
And
Akshay.
also, what I've seen when in the court, that judge is too smart. But when you talk about the High Court judge, probably he is a nice. That's what I'm getting to know from this conversation.
Okay, Akshay Marathe, the WhatsApp messages have come up again and again, as well as Miss Kejriwal's, the wife of Arvind Kejriwal, being at the helm of affairs as a kind of extra constitutional figure. Go ahead, closing thoughts.
The most important closing thought is a correction to Mr. Billimoria's submission that we cannot say at this stage whether he's guilty or not guilty, because the trial court has already pronounced its verdict. The trial court's verdict on bail says that prima facie he is not guilty. That is why they have given bail. So until the High Court cancels the bail, that order still stands. The stay is on the operation of the order where Arvind Kejriwal ji cannot be released. Yes, agreed. But until the High Court says that this bail order is wrong and we are cancelling, he is today, as of today, a man who has been cleared to get bail under Section 45. So he is prima facie not guilty. So I want to correct Mr. Billimoria on that. And on the second point about Ms. Kejriwal running the party and all, Arvind Kejriwal has repeatedly said Ms. Sunita Kejriwal ji is not interested in electoral politics. She's merely playing the role of a stand-in. She meets him on a regular basis. He's still the party leader. He's still the chief minister. She acts as a link between the party and her own husband. So I don't think people in the BJP may choose not to have wives for whatever reason, but just because Arvind Kejriwal has a wife, she should stop being, his partner.
Okay, now I think what people do in their personal spaces is for them to decide, and how they handle their parties is for voters to decide. How people's spouses act is not a legal question. It's not a legal question. So let's remember that. Let's go to Percival Billimoria on an important point by Akshay Marathe, that while the trial court order does not say Arvind Kejriwal is innocent in so many words, it does say the ED has acted with bias, and it does say that the ED has failed to establish any direct evidence of Kejriwal's hand in the proceeds, right? So we do have those two comments in the order. Go ahead, concluding remarks.
Now, again, this is not my opinion. All I'm saying is this is an order that has been challenged. Right now, we are awaiting that outcome. Now, all that we can debate at this stage is whether the challenge is worthy of merit in consideration or not. I'm saying it is. The reason I'm saying it is let the courts decide what the ultimate fate of this is going to be. I'm not passing a verdict here. I cannot possibly do that. But it is meritorious because of the fact that the findings in the Rouse Avenue Court's order are somewhat, in my view, very, very broad brush. When having recorded the submissions, two or three submissions that could have, in my view, if examined in slightly more detail, would have probably enabled her to give a bail which is a proper bail. See, one of the things that the ED argued is, please decide against me, but decide against me after hearing me and after considering what is on record. Now, you don't have to consider the entire voluminous record. Thousands of pages, absolutely not. But 2-3 pointers, if you go into in a little detail, you may have been able to conclude. That's all I'm
Okay.
saying. And that is the
Okay.
case we made out. Now let us see what the court says.
My own hunch, Arti, is that this is going to the Supreme Court. I could be wrong.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Yeah, let's see. But Arti, last word.
Yeah, so Barkha, just 2 or 3 brief points. Look, I think there can be no argument or no debate that in the last 5 years, the ED and CBI have been weaponized against the BJP's political opponents in a manner that we have never seen before. And just to, underline this point, 25 of the non-BJP leaders who joined the BJP just before the election have now been cleared of all the cases that had been registered against them. The most prominent one being Praful Patel of the NCP, who has had all charges against him dropped. So I don't know who's guilty, who's not guilty, but if you join the BJP, presumably, you become not guilty and the cases get dropped. So I think that, the point here not is whether Arvind Kejriwal is guilty or not. I mean, there are clearly political motives behind this, number one. And number two, just briefly, there is a message that has come out of this election. And if the BJP does not listen to that message, I'm afraid it is in for very serious trouble over the next 5 years. And the message is that people want to be heard for their problems. They have problems on the ground. There is agricultural distress. There are rising prices. There's joblessness. Resolve those problems. Why are you expending all your energy on using the ED and CBI to gun down your opponents and eliminate them from, the stage?
Okay.
Your concentration, your focus should be on helping us citizens to have a better life. And I think that is the message that has come from this election. The BJP it's up to the BJP whether it wants to listen or not.
Okay,
we'll leave it. If it doesn't listen.
We will leave it there. It's a matter of a few more days. Sorry, Mr. Billimoria, you have something to say? Yeah.
Just one short point. There is an underlying presumption that the ED is the BJP, which is absolutely incorrect. Right? It's not.
It's not just true for the BJP. These agencies have never had the autonomy under any government. Let's be real.
You're talking about ED and CBI. Okay, now I don't want to make any political comments because I am here only to comment on the law. But please do note that even in the Congress era and the UPA era, there were many draconian acts that were enacted. So, and also please do remember one more thing. One of the planks on which the BJP government came to power in 2014 is to eradicate corruption. So I don't agree with this premise that you should spend your energy in. They should spend their energy in everything. Right? This is an election promise. Now, what is the better way? Yes, the process can be, as Mr. Hegde said, it's not correct to hold somebody, in prison while the trial languishes.
I think Arati wants to say something to you. I think Arati.
Yes, have they eradicated corruption? If they are embracing leaders who have corruption charges against them and welcoming them into the NDA, then are they eradicating corruption or are they actually helping it to flourish? Please. Let's not look at politicians through rose-colored spectacles.
I agree with you over there, but again, I'm trying not to make political comments on what is strictly supposed to be a legal show. All right, but at the same time, if some allegedly corrupt people are being pursued, let the law take its own course. But yes, the law also cannot sink to a level where the trial takes place and it takes 7-10 years, right? But this is a question that is endemic to the system.
I have to close, but I can see Sanjay now trying to say something. Sanjay, can we unmute Sanjay? And then it has to be the last word. Sanjay Hegde, yes.
The essence of tyranny is the ability to use a harsh law selectively against your enemies. That is what's happening.
Okay. The debate continues. Let's, Ujjwal, if I talk to you, then I have to talk to Akshay, then I have to talk to everybody. Okay, Ujjwal.
Another time.
This time,
Yeah.
Mr. Hegde is talking about 1975, right? When the emergency was imposed by Congress against all the political forces in the country and all the journalists. So Barkha would not be reporting here right now had it been 1975, right, Barkha?
Yeah, I
So
mean,
thank you.
I was 4 years old in 1975, but I take your larger point, which is the point I was making, that all governments have sought to control investigative agencies, and that let's not, let's not pretend that we are all so non-cynical that we think otherwise, but let's leave it there. We will find out in a few days what the High Court decides to Percival, Billimoria, Sanjay, Hegde, Akshay Marathe, to Ujjwal, Deepak, and to Arati, Jerath. Thank you, and to our audience, see you tomorrow.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.